from other regions who feel their people are being targeted say the utterances amount to hate-mongering and that the leaders must be tamed by the conveners of the BBI, if not the head of state. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
Now, could the country be bracing up for the entrenchment of two likely centers of power with the ongoing constitutional amendment debate through the Building Bridges initiative? Well, this is a debate on the BBI popularization trail, which has rekindled memories of the tough supremacy battles that dogged the coalition government between the office of the president and that of the prime minister. Interestingly, this debate comes in the wake of what appears to be a growing rift in government between sworn defenders of President Uhuru Kenyatta and allies of his deputy, William Ruto. But would a parliamentary system really introduce two centers of power? And how can the growing rifts be forestalled in future administrations? Our political affairs reporter Murimi Mwangi takes a look on this week's House of Cards.
Like Siamese twins with an undetachable constitutional bond on their political hip bones, the Jubilee 2013 presidential victory under TNA's Uhuru Kenyatta and his running mate William Ruto of URP painted the ideal picture of the new political animal that is the joint presidential ticket. The dynamic pair at the time taking up the country's executive leadership from what had hitherto largely been described as a tumultuous marriage of convenience that was the retired President Mwai Kibaki and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga-led coalition government. Yet close to 7 years later, the troubled marriage has become a key reference point on whether Kenya is setting up itself for failure as debate hits a fever pitch on the necessity to expand the country's executive, returning the powerful post of Prime Minister and two deputies, as was the case in the Kibaki-Raila government.
I and Uhuru were deputy prime ministers. We were supposed to chair subcommittees sometimes on behalf of the Prime Minister. When he's not there, if Uhuru is not there, maybe the ODM ministers disappear. Sometimes when I chair, the PNU ministers disappear. So we developed a situation where there was always a lack of quorum.
But would a parliamentary system really create multiple centers of power? And what are the potential political landmines in returning the powerful post of Prime Minister? Under what the BBI task force described as a homegrown and inclusive structure of government in its November 27th report, the president was to remain as head of state and government and to pick a PM, that being a person with majority members in the National Assembly. Or if no political party has a majority, one who appears to have the support of majority of the MPs. The said PM is to sit in Parliament and head government business in the National Assembly.
As well as
a narrative Ruto had previously opposed, such as in his February last year's Chatham House address in London, where he rooted for enhanced coordination between Parliament and the executive, directly through the institution of the presidency.
To the leader of opposition taking leadership of the opposition in Parliament, the deputy president should then take over the leadership of government business in Parliament.
It is envisioned, I think, by the BBI that political parties would enter into these agreements in advance. And therefore, by the time you are doing a formal election, the parties would go around the country by saying, this is our president, this is our deputy president, this is our prime minister to be.
There's an assumption outside there is whoever becomes the president is also expected to have majority MPs. No. In 1997, Moi did not have a majority. He ended up being the president. If we will have had the position of prime minister at that particular time, so another party will have formed, will have had the prime minister.
The prime minister will be sitting in Parliament, and the president will be out there governing the country. So all parliamentary issues will be handled within Parliament. And the two of them, I'm not seeing any conflict of interest because one will be in Parliament, and the other one will be in State House.
Whether you have a parliamentary or a presidential or a hybrid system, it is how true you are to the system, how much you respect the rule of law and follow the rules, as opposed to which system you pick. I think the systems, every system has advantages and disadvantages.
Yet looking the other way and retaining the full executive authority of head of state and government at the presidency, some critics argue is not any better option to curing the tough political competitions and supremacy battles at the executive, particularly during a president's last term, despite the clearly cut out constitutional roles of the president as the head of state and government, with the deputy as his principal assistant. Case in point being the roadmap to President Kenyatta's exit in 2022, which by all indications promises murkier times within the Jubilee administration, where his deputy William Ruto's 2022 presidential ambition has seemingly awakened tough succession battles within and outside the government bureaucracy. A vicious face-off somewhat complicated by the Kenyatta-Odinga brood BBI process, a state of affairs that has largely ignited debate, particularly among radical BBI proponents, as Central Organization of Trade Union Secretary General Francis Atwoli, on the necessity of legal amendments through the BBI process to give the president powers to sack his deputy after the polls.
Deputy president is supposed to be assigned duties by the president in a normal circumstance. But then he's attracting those people who are drafting a new constitution to go back to during those days of Kanu, where a deputy should be appointed by the president.
I don't believe that having the power to fire the deputy president will solve maybe, for example, the kind of situation that we have. But expanding the executive, we will be able to cure some of these issues.
It should not be like the president firing the deputy. First of all, it should be the party discipline and the party sitting and the party organ sitting and saying, number two, we're going to withdraw the sponsorship of the deputy president or whoever party member in that matter.
Nevertheless, politics, they say, is the competition of who gets what, when and how. And with another